This week on Inside Scoop, the 12-day war. Are we looking at a new Middle East? Why the conservative legal movement is stronger than you think. And will Congress finally ban insider trading among its members? Welcome to Inside Scoop, where we talk about all the news that's fit to print in the Washington Examiner magazine. I'm Jim Antle, your host, and this week in our cover, Washington Examiner magazine columnist Dominic Green wrote a story about the 12-day war. And the 12-day war refers to the war between Israel and Iran, and they were given that name, the war was given that name by our marketer-in-chief, President Donald Trump. And what Dom talks about in the story is the way in which Israel, with a major assist from the United States, appears to have reshaped the balance of power in the Middle East and potentially redrawn the map and the political dynamics of that region in a way that is as significant as the Six-Day War decades ago, when Israel defeated a host of enemies with larger populations in a major consolidation of power for Israel regionally. So Iran has been facing setbacks with its proxies. Iran had suffered military defeats to Israel. Iran had seen, before the ceasefire, the loss of its superiority over its own airspace. And then ultimately, President Trump gave the order for the United States to hit Iranian nuclear facilities that were beyond the capacity of Israel to strike itself, presumably setting back the Iranian nuclear program by quite a lot, although by how much exactly remains in some dispute and will probably be worked out over time. So then the next phase, what we've called the 13th day of this war, will really concern what happens to the Iranian regime, which at this time remains in place but appears to be very much weakened. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran also remains in place at the time of this filming and has now lasted a couple of weeks. But the political dynamics for Iran and for the region remain very much in a state of flux, and the Middle East is a very unpredictable place. So also in this week's issue, Tevi Troy has written a piece looking at exactly how unpredictable this has often been, particularly with regard to Iran. Tevi notes that our problems with Iran diplomatically have dated back all the way to the Coolidge administration. It's been a struggle for past presidents going back that far, and this obviously predates by quite a bit the current Islamic Republic, which came to power in the late 1970s. That's, of course, the most memorable situation where a president, an American president, was affected by the situation in Iran. The Iranian hostage crisis in 1979 was among the several reasons that brought down Jimmy Carter's presidency. There was also the Iran nuclear deal under Barack Obama, which was famous for the pallets of cash being sent to Iran. And the first Trump administration ended that deal. The second Trump administration tried to negotiate a new deal and may still attempt to do so, but this time it will happen after major military action was taken against the Iranian nuclear sites. Is there any hope for President Trump to have a different result than many of the presidents who preceded him in trying to get a favorable military and political outcome in Iran? Let us know by commenting down below. I'm joined this week by Ilya Shapiro, the Director of Constitutional Studies at the Manhattan Institute. And Ilya's written a piece for this week's issue about the conservative legal movement being stronger than many people think. Ilya, thanks for joining me today.
Delighted to be here, and it's not that it's stronger; it's less divided. There's all this media about a split between MAGA and the Federalist Society or what have you. I think that's all exaggerated.
Right. So there has been this perception of a feud between President Donald Trump and the conservative legal movement that has long predated Trump's involvement in national politics. And while There is obviously a reality to feuding involved in anything sort of Trump-related. This is an overblown story in your view.
I think it is. And if you look at the Politico piece from a few weeks ago that I think was central to this, they didn't really quote people from either the Federalist Society or kind of more traditional conservatives or from MAGA world. It was kind of very one-sided for that particular readership. I've long been involved with the Federalist Society. Those of you watching this, the video here over my shoulder, there's a certificate from it. I also know a lot of people in the administration, and sure, the president has been frustrated by certain votes or certain injunctions or certain actions of the Supreme Court. You're never going to win 100% of the time. But as we've seen with the end of the Supreme Court term, it was a very, very good term, whether you're conservative, populist, MAGA, traditionalist, or whatever variety of this broad movement you're in.
Explain for us a little bit what the Federalist Society is. I think a lot of people have perceptions of what that organization is and does that maybe aren't realistic.
It's a membership organization, first and foremost. More than 70,000, I think maybe up to 80,000 now, lawyers and law students started more than 40 years ago as a reaction to the left-wing takeover of the legal academy. And then it sort of became the counterpart to the ABA for practicing lawyers as well. So it is an umbrella organization. They host debates, they host social events, annual conferences. They keep increasing their programs in a variety of ways. But it's always been a big tent ideologically, conservatives, libertarians, other kinds of center-right people, and politically or pragmatically in terms of what strategy should be. But it does not take positions. It doesn't file briefs. It doesn't advocate in any way. It serves as a platform and a connector for its vast membership of lawyers and law students.
So what do you think some of the biggest things that the Trump administration and conservatives more broadly should be happy about the just concluded Supreme Court term?
If you look at any of the cases that got top headline billing, whether it's Tennessee's ban on gender-related medical care for minors that was upheld, whether it's the case on universal injunctions, people thought of that as the birthright citizenship case, but that's going to be next term. This term was just a cleaning up, directing lower courts. No, you can't just willy-nilly block all federal programs, just being one judge out of the 800 in the country. Whether it's religious liberties, several important cases in that regard. Basically, there weren't that many 6-3 decisions, meaning the Republican appointees over the three Democratic appointees. But it seemed like all 6 of the 6-3s were in politically salient, newsworthy issues.
So is there anything going forward that you're looking for in terms of whether we're going to see some of these MAGA, more Reaganite conservative tensions, or do you think that we're going to see more of the same in the next Supreme Court term?
Well, a lot of the frustrations from the Trump administration, including the president himself, is on what the Supreme Court has done on the emergency docket. That is not the cases that they take up in the normal course, have full briefing and argument, and then a decision by the end of June. This is stuff that traditionally was death penalty related heavily. Then during COVID, we had a lot of emergency appeals. Now it's a lot of executive orders. And look, the administration's lawyers are purposely being aggressive in what they do. They are charged. The president was elected to disrupt and do things a different way. They're not going to win 100% of the time on the merits, and certainly in these procedural skirmishes, they can be they have been blocked. On the whole, and certainly a majority, a comfortable majority, the administration is going to win.
Thank you, Ilya. If you're following us on YouTube, you can read Ilya's full story by clicking here in our digital magazine. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is back in the headlines again with allegations of insider trading. Some other lawmakers seem to also be benefiting from well-timed stock trades. Our Amy DeLaura reports on whether there's any appetite in Congress to put a stop to this practice.
Media stories erupted recently about Representative Nancy Pelosi's financial dealings. This is not the first time the 38-year House member has received press scrutiny. The San Francisco Democrats' high-performing portfolio has long been the subject of critical media stories. Last year, for example, financial disclosures revealed the California Democrat had sold at least $500,000 in Visa stock a few months before the Justice Department announced an antitrust investigation of the firm.
You think it was luck? I don't think. She should be prosecuted. Nancy Pelosi should be prosecuted for that.
3 years ago, tech entrepreneur Chris Josephs built the Pelosi Stock Tracker, which displays her assets and their impressive performance. In the past, a Pelosi spokesperson has claimed she, quote, does not own any stocks, and the assets are in an account held by her husband, Paul Pelosi, who is a very experienced investor and financer.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information you've received from him?
No, absolutely not.
To be fair, the former speaker is not the only public official whose financial dealings have raised eyebrows. Nor are the Democrats the only ones who are suspected of wheeling and dealing on Capitol Hill. Senator Tommy Tuberville sold Apple stock shortly before President Donald Trump announced tariffs that drove down the share prices. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene purchased a bevy of technology stocks shortly before Trump paused some tariffs. She told press there was no problem as her investments are managed by an outside advisor. These are among many in Congress who often see gains in their stock portfolio that outpace the growth of the S&P 500. Charges of legislative graft are as old as the Republic itself. Thomas Jefferson and his co-partisans accused Alexander Hamilton and his supporters of colluding with stock jobbers to line their pockets. In the 1870s, legislators were gifted artificially low-priced railroad stock options to encourage them to vote for legislation favorable to building of the transcontinental rail system. Nobody would know about the stock transactions of Pelosi, Greene, and Tuberville if it were not for the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, enacted in 2012. The Stock Act also required the timely disclosure of legislators' stock purchases and sales. The frequent media stories about legislators' well-timed stock trades over the past several years have fermented a slew of bills to toughen up the Stock Act and other rules forbidding the commingling of officials' powers and personal wealth. House Speaker Mike Johnson, for his part, says he supports a ban on all stock trading.
I'm in favor of that because I don't think we should have any appearance of impropriety here.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has also voiced support, and President Donald Trump has said he would sign such a bill. Whether legislators will have a chance to vote on any of these bills is unclear. Neither chamber so far has agreed to vote on any particular bill. Similar legislation introduced in the two previous Congresses died from inaction. I'm Amy Delora for Washington Examiner.
Thank you, Amy. And this has been your Inside Scoop. You could read this story and all of the articles discussed here today in the Washington Examiner magazine. I'm Jim Antle. We'll catch you next time.